Hi, humans. We are recording, and it is going to be hopefully a little bit different experience than the last episode. Good Lord. There was so many things happening in that episode that I just went with it. It was going to be what it is, and it was fine. I wanted to come on and give you a podcast because next week is the holidays, and the following week I'm going out of town. So I thought I'd come on and give you a little chat. It looks like it's interesting, right? As always, I have had conversations with clients. I've also been listening to podcasts, and just kind of the universe likes to blend things together. But today, I wanted to talk about how successful we can be when someone has our back, right? And really thinking about the relationships that we have that create secure attachment really comes from that reinforced feeling and belief that someone has our back. And, obviously, when we talk about partnerships, right, romantic, we want to have a partner, someone who is hopefully at our equal level and has, is reinforcing or backs you up on decisions or, reinforcing and building confidence so that you feel successful or you feel like you can do the hard things. The conversation I was having was actually with a client. So for those of you who don't know, I work with an EAP or an employee assistance program. So with lots of different companies, lots of different industries all over the state of New Mexico. And this particular client has done a really great job of doing their work and showing up consistently and being curious and asking questions and all the things. But they had taken a job, like a promotion. And part of the reason they came to see me was they were feeling really insecure and feeling like they weren't able to do it. And it was really stressful and overwhelming. And so they wanted to seek support to be able to get to a place where they felt more confident. And over the time that we've been working together, we've had conversations about, in other times in your life, have there been situations where you were new or at doing something, maybe you didn't know all the ins and outs of it and kind of built confidence with experience. And so they were able to find a couple experience examples. And so then they were like, yeah, that's the thing. And I was like, is there anybody, kind of that is in your industry or that you work with that you look up to, like a mentor? And we're like, yeah, actually there's, a couple guys and people who have expressed that, I could be really good at these like supervision leadership positions. And I really like the way they lead and they are really good at their job. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's someone that you can talk to and maybe get some ideas of how to be successful in the current position that you're in, while also, modeling for your employees, your team, how to do the job. So they went back and they were able to do that. But our conversation today, which is our termination conversation, because they're doing really well and they don't need to see me anymore, was that he started to build confidence. And one of the things that really kind of reinforced that was knowing that this leader had their back, that this leader could show up in his team and really support and endorse the things that he was saying. And it had me thinking, that is such an incredible way of supporting someone, is by showing them that you have their back, that you are on board with what they say, that you agree with their style or whatever they're doing. And a lot of times when I have clients in my office, and certainly when they are parents, one of the things that really helps to reinforce for kiddos is when both parents are on the same page and they reinforce the same thing, right? And a lot of times there's usually one parent that is the disciplinarian or, the one kind of having to do the heavy lifting of getting things ready for the kids or, getting them in the car or, doing bedtime and bath time. And sometimes parents will do a great job of being partners and collaborating on those activities. But one of the frustrations that I hear often is I don't feel like I have a teammate. I feel like I'm doing it by myself. I feel like I'm a single parent. And that's really challenging when They don't feel like they've got someone who will endorse what they're doing, that has their back, that's following through in their absence to be able to like do the same things. That's a really frustrating position to be in, especially when you have a partner, because you're doing it on your own and then having to like justify or validate it to the other adult to do the same thing. And it is one of the things that really rips at the foundation of a partnership, because if we're not on the same page, doing the same thing, kind of reinforcing it for each other, and then, kind of communicating that, a lot of times kids and employees will undermine a situation by triangulating, right? So that is like when there's one point of contact and then they use the other 2 points of contact against each other, right? So the triangle. It's a really challenging position to be in when you recognize that somebody is, if you don't, and again, in that parenting scenario, can I don't know, use the PlayStation, whatever. And so the other parent will be like, well, what did your other parent say? They said I could do it. All right, well, let's go check together. That's how we reinforce that, as opposed to just taking it for granted that that's what the other parent said, right? It's so easy to, like, if they're not in the same space, pick up the phone and be like, let me check with your other parent before I can do that. The other thing is, especially when it comes to discipline or reinforcing rules, we have to be on the same page. And a lot of times when I work with couples, I will ask them, before you made people, did you have a conversation about what you wanted parenting to look like? Did you have a conversation about shared labor and, how you wanted a household to run? A lot of times people aren't having these conversations. They're just being like, you're so great. You're so great. I love you. And then they don't, they get to that place where they're like cohabitating, and then they make people, and they're now struggling to be like, oh, I don't actually agree with that. That's not how I discipline. That's not how I see parenting. Our values are not the same, which is really frustrating. Or, sometimes, and I have talked about it often, specifically in couples and relationship therapy, is that people will parallel grow, and they're both experiencing, their own growth. They're going through their own thing, and it's at a different level than their partner. And then they really have noticed that they are pretty far apart. They're not connected. And that's going to be a really challenging thing if they are facing something difficult together, where they're not together. They're not like on the same page or have the same value or perspective of a situation. What we know to be true, especially in a relationship dynamic, romantic, but not exclusively, right? Sometimes like friendships and certainly sibling relationships, is that if you and I haven't had a conversation ahead of time about what our game plan is to go into a thing, and then we go into it and it's like kind of chaos and we have different perspectives and we're not seeing it from the same lens, then it will create a challenge. I did have another couple whom I've seen for a while, and they're actually really great at communicating and really great at like meeting each other where they're at, but they were going to get ready for the holiday, the last one that just happened in November. And in years past, it has always been kind of chaotic and a little bit challenging because the one partner feels like they have to manage everybody else's expectations and feelings and all the things. And so we had a conversation, me and that partner, and we're like, okay, what would you like to accomplish? What would you like to experience, right? And so they were like, well, I really want everybody to have a good time. I said, can you control that? And they were like, well, probably not all the time. But when it comes to your other adult partner, it would be helpful to have a conversation ahead of time to create like I don't know, like a safe word or a look or some kind of, shared experience, so that if the other one needs rescuing, that so they are asking for it, rather than you kind of feeling on edge that you always have to like save them or rescue them. And so they were like, okay, that is something I can do. anyway, it turns out that the holiday went really, really well. And part of that was having a game plan. Part of that was having a conversation ahead of time, setting some expectations, creating some boundaries, obviously, and then also creating some space that if they needed to, or they felt overwhelmed, that they could, go hang out in the bathroom for a little bit, or go outside, or go for a walk. And they could also check in with each other to be like, okay, are you good? Do you need support? Like all of those things. It was actually really beautiful because when they came in, they were like, this was the best holiday we've had probably ever in the 30 some years that they've been married, because they had a game plan. They communicated it, and then they executed it really beautifully, really recognizing that the other person had their back. The other person was going to show up and say and do what they said they were going to do, which was really cool. And they didn't need the safe stuff. They didn't need to be rescued. They didn't need to be, to go for a walk or hang out in the bathroom or whatever. Just knowing that they had that as an option was enough, which was really helpful. When I think about my own relationship dynamics, and as I speak about my own stuff often, going through really difficult and challenging times, nothing made me feel more secure than knowing someone had my back, that I had my accountability buddy, some other friends that were going to encourage me and be there if I was struggling, if I was having a hard time, or if I, was kind of unsure of myself, or if I wasn't, 100% like secure in that I was doing the right thing. It was really nice to have, that few people going, you've got this, like, we trust you, and we trust that you're going to get through it. Even if you're not, we're going to be here. And it was priceless. Like, it was so helpful to have people who were in my corner who I knew were going to be there if I needed support. And if I needed to ask for it, if I needed to kind of tap them in and be like, okay, I need you to either like pull me out of a situation, or I need you just to back me up. And knowing that someone is there to support you and back you up really does build that confidence so that you can do the difficult thing, or you can do the challenging thing, or you can do the really hard thing of like getting through difficult situations. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I can get myself into and out of a lot of bullshit. I've seen me do it. But when I can recognize that, like, okay, and I call it like making sure that they're tied off to something secure, right? I haven't done a whole ton of climbing, like scaling, rocks or mountains or whatever. But I have done belaying off of a cliffside. I did it when I was much younger, but I really loved the idea of like knowing that someone at the top had the rope that was securely attached to something, and they could lower me down as long as I told them that that's what I was going to do. And so I talk about that often, especially with my clients, of like, who's got you securely attached, right? And so back to this idea of attachment is, it's the concept of feeling secure and knowing that whoever you're attached to securely can go away, and you know that they will come back. You know that through time and history and evidence that they are going to help you get your needs met. And when you can feel securely attached to someone, you know that they've got your back, they trust you, you can go off and do your own thing, and then you can come back, or they will come back. That is such a helpful feeling to build that confidence, to build that evidence-based research that you can do a hard thing, you can get through challenging or difficult situations. And I recognize that, like, most of us feel as though hopefully we've got at least one person that has that. And I talk about my friends often because they are my chosen family, but also because I've given them the tools to be able to, if I'm in a downward spiral, if I'm talking negatively to myself, they will help me fact check it through. That's how they have my back, right? They will be able to be like, hey, remember when you did this thing and this thing and this thing, and you were able to get through it? You can get through this thing too. And we often will get, distracted or overwhelmed and feel as though, like, I don't know how I'm going to do this hard thing. And, as I've said often, like, the world works in a way that you can't predict it. And even if you've got the best skills and the greatest team behind you, there will always be something that happens off book, something unexpected, something tragic or difficult. And for those of us who have secure attachments to people who are there to support us, they have the evidence to be able to say, hey, remember when you got through this other thing? We'll get through this together. Even if they can't do all the parts of it with you. I have a friend who's applying for graduate school. She just finished her undergrad and she worked so hard at it. And, she was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I know what I want to do. And so I was able to write a letter of recommendation for them because, again, she's proven, I've known her for years now, that she can do hard things, that she's put herself in challenging situations, or she's pushed herself to get through really difficult things while working a full-time job and, being a participant in her marriage and maintaining friendships. And so I was easily able to be like, absolutely, this person will do great in this graduate program, and she will be an asset to, the industry that she wants to get into. But it was helpful for her to know that there are people who have, one, seen it, two, experienced it, and three, support her, right? She was able to have the confidence to apply for that job or to do that hard thing, knowing that she's got a community behind her. And again, if we're lucky enough to have one or two people that we can just know that they are securely there, we do have to maintain the relationship and put in the effort and do all the things. But as long as we know that somebody's there, we are literally unstoppable. And so when it comes to parenting, it's interesting, right? Because I've often said the goal for parenting is to help support and, get a child to the place of independence so that they can go out into the world and feel secure about themselves, but also knowing that they've got, a community behind them that has their back. And a lot of times throughout parenting, it's really challenging because we have this idea in our head of who we want to create, right? We want to have good kids who make good choices and are kind and they're responsible and all the things that we want, for our littles. But in order for us to get to that place where they feel like they can do that, we have to support them. We have to have their back. We have to trust that, there's always going to be new and hard and difficult situations, but also there are going to be opportunities and I've told you before, when I say I trust you, I believe that you're going to be able to do this. And I trust that you will ask for support, that you are going to be curious enough to be able to learn how to do a challenging or difficult thing. And that even if you fail, you can get up and do it again, right? And as we, support our littles to be able to do all of the basic things at the beginning, eat with a spoon, hold a pencil, ride a bike, walk, right? We have to be able to support them. And generally we're standing behind them, supporting them to be able to do those things. As they go off to school, some of them are shy or timid, or, some of them are rambunctious and overwhelming. But also recognizing that that's how they experience and learn in the world, is by trying something, maybe not succeeding every time, but as long as they know that we support them, that we are able to be there if they need, that extra encouragement, if they need, some hugs and kisses and, kiss the boo-boo or whatever it is, that's how we encourage them to continue to explore the world around them. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. One of the podcasts that I was listening to, because I love Trevor Noah, was his conversation with Dr. Becky, whom I was not familiar with, but I think I've had parents ask me if I knew who she was, and I was like, I don't know. But this conversation was really interesting because she really approaches parenting from that perspective of supporting your kids from a loving and empathetic place, while also, holding them accountable and getting them prepared to be out in the world. And so she talks about really thinking about processing feelings and then having the skills to do it. And a lot of times, obviously, new children don't have the skills to be able to manage the big feelings that they are experiencing. And I talk to parents often where it's like, okay, I get that your goal is to have a functional adult, but right now you have a 4-year-old, right? And so you're applying adult logic to a 4-year-old situation. And it's really helpful when we can start to take a step back and go, okay, I don't need to get you to adulthood today. I just need to get you through the morning routine and get you out, to preschool or whatever it is. And so when they can take a step back and be like, okay, all I need to do is support my child through this day, it's so much easier to be present and to allow the thing to unfold in a way that is helpful for their little nervous system and also helpful for our big nervous system. Because as adults, we can have big feelings, but if we don't have the skills to manage it, it can look like a tantrum. And so it's interesting now that I think about this idea of, being supportive to the people that we love and showing up and having their back, and how much of a significant impact that has when we can show up in that way, because then we're unstoppable. Literally, like, we can do anything that we set our minds to as long as we know that there's one other person that's got your back. So there's your nugget. It's a little bit shorter today. As like I said, next week, I'll probably do one on Friday, but then the following week for New Year's, I will be out of town. And we'll probably do a wrap up of 2025 next week. You can still get copies of the book if you want to. Just reach out to me. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on from the publisher directly, Dorrance. In the clickable spaces under my name on all of my bios on social media, you can find ways to get it. It's Best Intentions, the Things I Do for Love. This has been a crazy year, and in lots of good ways, and also really like challenging what the hell kind of ways. But I'm grateful to all of you who continue to like listen and support the podcast, who reach out to me, follow me on social media, all the things. If you do need to get a hold of me, it's lx2.cod.coach@gmail.com. Big news, I put down the deposit to do the audiobook, so hopefully that'll come out next year. I'm excited, right? I'll be reading the book myself. I will have a PDF on my website that has all the questions if you want to be interactive in that way. But that's the next step. Working on the next book, doing all the things. But let's just get through the end of the year, right? We've got 2 weeks. We can totally do that. All right, guys. Thank you so much again for listening and supporting the podcast. I will talk to you soon. Take care.